More Isengard Abridged!
Yep, that's right, it's episode 8, and last time we made some progress against Enidwaith, we took back Bregness, and captured Balorn, a nice valuable coastal settlement. So that's going well. Meanwhile, Rohan were at it again at Helm's Deep. We held off another wave. Still, they had another army nearby that was able to capture Faldberg, giving them now pretty close access to Isengard, so we do need to deal with that. We've got something of an army put together now on the bridge to the west of Faldberg. This is a combination of troops hanging around there already, troops coming back from the Bregness campaign, and new troops recruited using the bit of money we now have, which came from capturing places off to the west. So now we have a big army actually on the Rohan front for once. What I want to do is break through Faldberg and put some of these troops back into Hornburg so that we can definitely hold it. Now, I'm so eager to do this that I actually go and besiege Faldberg here, but you'll see in a minute we're not going to bother doing this siege. The actual problem becomes apparent immediately. We're besieging it, but we're also in range of another big Rohan army, which I didn't actually find out until just after I started the siege, as you can see here. I could still call off the siege, but I didn't, so we'll just see what happens with that one. Now, Saruman needs to come back to the Rohan battlefront. I've been trying to do this for a while now. He's finally going to leave the Enidwaith warfront, where still we've got enemy armies hanging around, threatening to attack us. But now, at Karas, that nearby settlement, we've built an armory, which according to its own description gives us a freely spawning garrison if the place is attacked. So, we don't know how big that is, but the theory is perhaps that will be enough to hold the territory. Now back over here, the thing I was hinting at happens. All of the Rohan armies are together now and attacking my force besieging Faldberg. That balance bar doesn't look all that bad actually, so we could potentially take them down and use this as a siege draw-out for Faldberg. Then again, there's not really any point in doing that. We can just fall back and try to fight them one at a time to make things easier. We don't want to get stomped with our one army after we finally put it together. Looked for a second there like they might come and attack the bridge right after, but unfortunately no. We do get attacked though by Enidwaith, so now we're going to test this garrison thing. We've got two armies attacking from two sides there. And I thought maybe the garrison would be there already. I've seen this garrison thing happening before when I did this campaign as Mordor, but I couldn't remember how it worked, so basically I didn't know at this point whether I was getting screwed over or not by this garrison system. Here's me getting screwed over by myself, really. I tried to move these two units over towards the town to help, but some sort of crazy misclick occurred and they ended up going up there behind a forest, so that's no good to anyone. Anyway, we're going to get out of this whole situation with Saruman at least. Even if everything dies, I guess we'll just come back later with an army, because right now we're going to focus on Rohan. We're building up more and more stuff on this bridge, and we now no longer have an income as a result. But I really don't want to attack right now, because it would be so much better if they attack me. We'd be able to have a really good bridge battle and then push on with momentum, so I'm going to keep waiting for that. Here's Rohan's turn. And we do see a lot of shuffling about. We see more and more stuff actually building up near Faldberg. They're reinforcing, but they're not attacking, so our plan isn't happening. At Karas, Enidwaith for some reason ended their siege and walked off, so that allowed me to reinforce the area with those units out in the forest. That's all good at least. We've also now started getting that Melkor's shadow culture going. This Balorn place is going to take a while to get it, but eventually we should be able to recruit something there, which will make holding it way easier. Now moving on to the next end turn sequence. Rohan are still stacking up right in front of our army by the bridge, but they do seem reluctant to attack, and after a while of walking backwards and forwards, essentially nothing happens. Another anticlimax. At least now, Saruman has made his way back to this front. Our army is at full strength. We've got a full stack of troops with 3 generals and a max level commander in Saruman. This is easily the most powerful thing we've had to play with in this campaign, and we're probably facing the most powerful suite of Rohan troops in front of us at the same time. But still, I don't want to do anything until they attack me. Here we are in the next turn. Obviously they didn't attack me, but we'll get back to that. Here's some good news. It looks like the High Elves off to the west have declared war on Enidwaith for some reason, so that's going to help us out quite a lot. We need some wars between the good side factions to help us out here, because Enidwaith are not going anywhere anytime soon. With any luck they'll get absolutely annihilated by the elves, and that will save us some time, or at least the AI will send troops over there and they won't attack us as much. And by the way, just in case you forgot, I am still asking for peace every turn. They are not at all interested. Here's some cool news though, Hornburg has now reached enough Melkor's shadow culture to start spawning units. It's going to take a while before anything's available, but soon we'll be able to more readily defend this location. Also, having that culture allows us to have free upkeep on some of our units, so now we're making a tiny bit of money again as well. That's all good stuff. Now you might also note something strange here. Rohan's armies are no longer at Faldberg. They've actually moved to Hornburg and look like they're going back towards Edoras. This wasn't shown in the end turn sequence. For some reason the game doesn't always show AI moves, especially incredibly important ones like that for some reason. So, basically, the thing at Faldberg has just disappeared inexplicably, and now we're going to advance off this bridge and try to do something. It looks like they did have an ambush going, but a very small ambush that can't stop us, so I had to turn around there to fight that army. They annoyingly retreated across the bridge and are now in our territory. I'm going to go after them. This is a bit annoying because it's using up movement points, but we have enough to still go back and attack Faldberg after this, and in particular, attack the little army that's outside Faldberg, so we can get a siege draw out. It's just one general on the inside, so we just need to make sure he dies in this fight. It's an easy looking one, but we do have to do it manually just because auto-resolves don't really work with the siege draw-out strategy, so let's try and kill them all as efficiently as possible. I formed the troops up into a big, messy line of all the raiders and reavers with these spears on both ends and the berserkers in reserve. The thing this army really lacks is ranged attack capability, which is annoying against Rohan's Jav, Cav and Horse Archers. We can't kill them by running at them because they'll just move away, and our archers can't really kill them just because they straight up aren't very good. So we do have trouble with things like this, we're just getting jabbed and shot. And really the strategy just comes down to take the jabs and try not to die. Eventually everything can charge forwards into the enemy's infantry. Their infantry is far outnumbered by ours, so we'll be able to get some surrounds going and things. Really we need to focus on that general who's coming off to the right over there, since we need to make sure he dies for this siege draw out to be at all possible. We've got our spear units on the flanks who are going to easily take down the enemy's riders and scouts who are hanging around there. Generally speaking, all the fights will be quite good, but the enemy can retreat quite easily. Not only can the cav just leave whenever they want, but their militia and things are sort of fast. We actually can't catch up to them by chasing after them with our infantry units. And that's annoying because after they rout, actually loads of them rout all the way off the field without us catching them. In the meantime, I was focusing on trying to take down this general, who himself is doing some good attacks. There's a nice flank attack on some of our guys. Thought maybe he died instantly, but no, we just killed the captain of the first army. So yes, these Rohan bodyguards are a bit of a pain because they're just a really strong unit. They can fight for ages in all directions against all sorts of things. So here I'm trying to get them surrounded. One of the things we need to keep in mind is that they can leave whenever they want. So we need units in different directions to try and catch them, especially if they rout. And after I tried to set that up, it eventually fails because they lose a load of men and then just get out of there, so that's annoying. What we don't want is that unit to rout while it's away from us, because they'll just rout off the field and then the general will certainly survive. Bit of a nice trick shot from Saruman's crossbows there, picks us up another kill or two. But yes, these riders continued to be annoying. Eventually they got into another melee, which is great, but they routed without the general dying. Annoying, so I need to continue the battle here in the hope of just somehow killing him, and that might have been him just there actually. He does die, perhaps it's one of these guys getting shot by the arrows, I don't think so. Egbert is down. There we go, we've successfully done that. However, as alluded to earlier, about half of the other enemy army actually escaped, just a ton of militia and scout cav, and they go into the town, so the siege draw out fails. This is strange because I feel like I've been doing siege draw outs in Medieval 2 since the day I was born, but I never remember having cases where the army outside the castle actually went inside afterwards to make it fail. Maybe I just usually get the percentage to make it work, or maybe the mod is a bit different with the rules. Who knows? So now we have to besiege Faldberg and try to take it again. That'll be no trouble, but it does mean the Rohan forces could come back if they wanted to. And maybe they were thinking about it. Annoyingly, we get another turn where it doesn't show their movements for some reason. But here's where everything ends up. They've got one army still down near Hornburg, and everything else did come back to Faldberg, but they didn't counterattack Saruman, they're just standing around. And that other big army looks like it's trying to set up an ambush by the bridge or something. Overall, not the worst situation. What we can do is just attack the town anyway, because with night attack, that stack of 1,000 men nearby can be ignored, and we ought to resolve our way in. So that's the siege out of the way at least. Wasn't sure whether I should sack these people again, since I sacked them already. And I guess if you keep sacking them, the population keeps declining, and it ends up not being worth holding it, because you need the population to make some money. I don't sack them. I think in that case actually sacking them would have been a good idea, because they're still angry at us, but whatever. After all that, I go back to the original plan, because I can step out of the town and stand on the bridge next to their big army. So the hope there is of course that the big army will say, okay, we'll try and fight you, and we'll finally get a really favourable engagement. And here's the Rohan turn. First, the big army near Hornburg goes and lays siege to it at last, and everything else is now going for Faldberg again. So that's annoying, we're sort of going around in circles right here. We seem to be going right back towards where we were like 10 turns ago. We need to actually do something. At the start of this next turn, we get a nice message saying that Orthanc is flourishing, Orthanc being Isengard. So that's good. I don't know what exactly we did to trigger this happening, but the rest of the world is being told that we're doing well. We also get this mission from the Uruk bourgeoisie, sorry, telling us about a Rohan settlement, so clearly they have information that we don't. I wish they would just tell us where the enemy are if they know, but oh well, the bourgeoisie work in mysterious ways. So yes, Rohan has that big siege going at Hornburg for us to deal with. Can we deal with it? Well, we'll just have to find out. As for the Faldberg siege, things aren't that difficult, because you can see they've got all the armies separated out for some reason. So this allows us to attack them one by one, using the fact that Saruman has night attack. So let's try to actually undo the situation and make some progress. We're going to go in and fight the force actually doing the siege, 1,000 troops or so, with night attack, so that we can overwhelm them and try to take them down nice and neatly with a manual resolve, and then go on to fight the other ones afterwards. I've got the same formation going as in the last battle, and we're going to have the same problem with not having very many or good ranged units. At least I'm the attacker, which means the enemy are slightly reluctant to bother charging me, so we do get some extra time at the start where Saruman takes out some enemy militia. Eventually though, they're just going to charge everything into our line, and I'm going to do a pretty bad job of receiving this charge. My spears aren't actually on the end of the line there, they were behind the end of the line. So the enemy don't have to charge into my spears, as it turns out. They charge into all of my raiders and reavers. All of my front line is basically raiders, reavers and berserkers, which are all weak against being attacked. They're all units which are attack focusing units, so just standing there and being charged is really about the worst thing that can happen to them, other than getting shot with ranged units, which the enemy don't really have. So that's not a very good opening to this battle, and my dream of a non-messy way of getting through this isn't going to happen. We need to focus what ranged units we do have on taking out the enemy horse archers, otherwise they'll just shoot us forever, and everything else we'll just grind and see what happens. I noticed out on our right I've got this free unit of berserkers who are just gradually being killed by the enemy horse archers. That's extra annoying, since that's the thing berserkers are most weak against with their 0 shield stat and low armor. So I ordered them to just run at the horse archers to see if anything would happen. Meanwhile, at the other end of the line things are a bit better, because I was bothering to do some micro and outflanking the enemy and such, so we destroyed their militia units easily. Our berserkers very nicely actually did manage to catch the enemy horse archers and get them into a melee, so that's an interesting discovery. We can use them a bit like light cav, because they run faster than regular units. Very nice. As for the other unit, I'm trying to take them out by running at them pointlessly, but I'm also going to try and do an outflanking maneuver to force them into my own troops. The enemy general is still fighting away on the front line, but otherwise that front line is won. We just can't kill that general because our stats are too low compared to his. So here you can see I'm trying to use my light cav to drive that Cantabrian circle into pursuers coming from the other direction. All that works out and the battle ends with everything routing, but I actually continue to fight because the enemy general is still alive, and if he escapes, his unit will still be alive of course, so it's better to try and kill him now. Just going to desperately send everything after him. We actually killed all of his bodyguards, but not him. We almost caught up just at the end there with some light cav, but the general, on his own, escapes. That's the end of the battle. The rest of his army is in big trouble, and we did take more losses than I thought we would in that fight. I'm sure if I'd made my line wider and done more outflanking, that would have been good. I was being too cautious with my boxy formation, and not putting the spearmen at the front when the enemy's cav were there is a classic mistake, of course. Anyway, we've won, and now we can do a bit more shenanigans using night attack because these armies are all standing next to each other, but we can cancel the reinforcement mechanics. So let's start killing them. For some reason the balance bar resets to even after I go out of the little menu looking at the enemy troops there. But it's all good. We night attack that one army, and off a few survivors run. I attack the other tiny one, it tries to move away, we can pursue and finish them off as well. So between those 3 victories we just saw, the enemy's force at Faldberg has been diminished, but the main blob is still there. I could charge right at them, I've got the movement to attack them, but the call of that bridge is too much for me to resist apparently. I'm back at it again. This is more powerful than the One Ring. I just want to stand on this bridge. Do Rohan hear it too? Will they answer the call of the One Eisen Bridge to rule them all and come to challenge me? Well, to find out we have to first get through this fight because they make the assault at Hornburg. So it's just another one of these really. This army is a bit more suitable to doing this than some of the ones we've seen previously, but still plenty of cav for us to work with and against, meaning that once again it's all about that ram as the fight starts. I was careful to try and stop that ram well before it reaches the gate so we don't have any gate stuck open shenanigans, and we're going to do that with these 11 berserkers who are effectively being sent out as a sacrifice because now lots of other stuff will aggro onto them. The nice thing about this situation is that all of the enemy's Jav Cav and Horse Archers will stay quite far back from the wall in order to shoot at the Berserkers, and as I've mentioned previously, on this map, anything close to the wall is invulnerable to ranged fire effectively because the wall is all glitchy and useless. So this means our archers up on the wall will gradually be taking out the enemy's skirmishing Cav, and over the course of the battle will actually kill quite a few of them. So that's much more effective than if they had fought anywhere closer to the wall basically. While all that's going on, they do have some ladders and a siege tower, and they are going for the deeping wall. Looks like we've already repelled one unit, but since they do have quite a few melee units in this army, we are by no means done over there yet. Our berserkers, well, they're done. They are finally taken out by the enemy spam by the ram, and the question is, will they pick up the ram and keep going? And finally we see the correct answer of no. This is what I wanted to see the other times I tried attacking units that are pushing a ram. Sometimes the AI will decide to do something else with that unit and the ram will be forgotten about, and in this case they're probably bringing them over to climb up to the siege tower. Looks like they're starting to get a bit of a footing up here. They've made some space for themselves with their spears, but they haven't killed very many of Lurtz's bodyguards who are far stronger than them. Here where we're defending mostly with the Uruk Raiders, it's not going to be quite as easy for us because the enemy troops are actually better than us. Although fighting on the wall does give you an advantage, if only in terms of the number of models you can have attacking enemy units at once. You tend to land several attacks at the same time and you can stun lock enemies and stuff. That tends to happen less and less as things become like this, where the enemy now have some space to move, and now it's just a very slow grind with a few troops from each unit fighting each other at the front. Here you can see the struggle our raiders are having. They are being gradually pushed back and gradually killed. The enemy's militia are worse than our raiders, but their axe troops and their spear troops are better. Well, here we are a bit later, and you can see the enemy luckily routed and died just before we lost all of our raiders, although we now have very few. As for Lurtz's fight, I tried to help him out by bringing some archers over to shoot the last couple of arrows they had into these units, and this worked out pretty well in that it caused them to rout with loads of their troops left. They're going to be fighting to the death, but as I've mentioned previously, fighting to the death seems to be glitched. They'll just stand there and die, so Lurtz will be fine to kill them. However, another unit has gone back to the ram, so now it looks like something could be happening over there, so I'm going to send some troops back over to the gate ready to defend. Here is Lurtz killing the last of the enemies up on the wall, and look at this glorious sight, a huge pile of dead, disgusting manfolk. This is Lurtz's deep now for all intents and purposes. So we're setting up behind the gate thinking that the enemy are about to break through. However, not much is happening. I just cut like 5 minutes out. The enemy seem to have stalled, and the reason is just on the other side of the gate actually. They did pick up the ram, and they did move the ram up to the gate. But then at the last second, we were saved, quote unquote, by some glitching out. Looks like they can't push the ram anymore for some reason, so I'm going to actually open the gate here, because at this stage, I want the enemy cav to attack me. We've got 2 walls of pikes and some spear guard behind the gate, so these cav will probably die if they actually charge through. Trying to tempt them in is more difficult than I thought. Opening the gate doesn't cause them to attack. But after I send this little squad of 13 Uruk warriors out to challenge the ram, this does finally aggro the AI. They do control A attack move into the gate, and now we're in business. We do have a tiny bit of time to escape with these Uruk warriors because the enemy get delayed as they pathfind around the ram. So most of them will escape that situation. Thank you very much, you guys. Now we're going to have this fight. Obviously this was avoidable. I'm pretty sure I could have just done nothing and let the timer run out to win automatically. But it's worth taking this fight because we'll win. The enemy really have no chance of actually breaking through and taking the castle. And we have a very good chance of having the enemy run into the front of our pike wall and get killed. Their sheer mass does allow them to actually break through the first pike wall. So it's very handy that I had two, with another one just behind the first one. So yes, the first pike wall is now in there somewhere, somehow surviving by the looks of things. I'm guessing they still have their bonus against Cavs, so they're not getting killed too easily. And everything else is pushed through to both another pike wall and our half-orc spear guard, who are very good against all of this, not especially powerful in melee Rohan stuff. So we cut forward a little bit, and eventually this big blob is killed or routed. That ends the battle. We're already over 85%, so we can just end things right now with no pursuit. And that's that, a heroic victory for our side. The only concern is one I've mentioned before. This isn't really sustainable in that we are losing stuff every time this happens. So we're going to need a breakthrough and some reinforcements to get to Hornburg eventually, but for this turn at least, we have repelled another Rohan assault. Looks like some stuff escaped there, even though we were over 85%, maybe they left earlier, I'm not quite sure what the rules are. Anyway, as for that bridge battle I was trying to go for, we once again do not get it. It just is not happening. The Rohan army just besieges Faldberg. They're far more interested in that than fighting our main army. So what's the result? Well, we're going to have to just actually fight them. That's what it comes down to. I finally escape the pull of the one bridge, and we're going to do this. We're going to run at them. Their army isn't that good. It's not packed with the heavier cav and things like that. It's got lots of the scout cav, who we can kill by just running at them. As for the infantry, well, it's probably better than ours. The militia are worse than ours, at least. But nothing that running at them really hard can't deal with. My Uruk brothers. We'll find out next time, I suppose.